It was Christmas Eve in Palo Alto. The house smelled like cinnamon candles, the kind my mom always lit too early in December. The tree sparkled with ornaments collected over years, each one carrying a memory, at least for everyone else. For me, the night felt heavy before it even began. Still, I told myself, maybe this year will be different. We gathered in the living room, my parents smiling as if they were on stage, Brandon bouncing like a kid even though he'd just turned 20. Wrapping paper piled up in bright stacks around us, the fireplace crackled, and holiday music hummed in the background. It looked perfect, the kind of scene you'd see on a Hallmark card. But you know this, right? Sometimes the prettier the picture, the uglier the cracks hiding underneath. Then came Brandon's turn. He tore into a huge box parked by the window. My parents clapped their hands together, practically glowing. Out rolled the keys to a brand new Porsche Taycan, electric blue, shining under the twinkle lights like a jewel. The room filled with cheers. Brandon screamed, "No way!" and hugged Dad, then Mom. Everyone laughed, snapped photos, and shouted congratulations. And me, I clapped too. I forced it, but I clapped. My cheeks burned, not from the fire, but from the sting of invisibility. When it was my turn, I pulled a small box onto my lap. I didn't even need to shake it. I could tell it was light. Inside? A cheap faux leather wallet and a single crisp dollar bill, folded in half. $1. That was it. My mom giggled, saying, "It's symbolic, honey." A little push to help you save, quote. Imagine this. Your sibling gets a Porsche and you get a dollar bill. How would you feel? I smiled politely, but inside I was screaming. Do you ever bite your lip so hard you can taste iron? That was me. And here's the thing. It wasn't about the car. It wasn't about money. It was about what that car meant. To them, Brandon was the golden child. I was... Background noise. I glanced around the room, hoping someone, anyone, would notice the difference. My aunt, my cousins, the neighbors who had been invited, they all laughed along. "Such a thoughtful gift," someone whispered. Thoughtful? Really? My dad reached over, patted my shoulder like he'd just handed me the world. Be grateful, Emily. Every little bit counts. That word, grateful, landed like a slap. Grateful for what? For being reminded again that I was second place? For being the afterthought? The contrast was unbearable. Brandon was already outside, running his hands along the sleek curves of his car, shouting to his friends on FaceTime, "Look what my parents got me!" His joy filled the night air, and mine evaporated into silence. I held that dollar bill between my fingers, staring at George Washington's face until the image blurred. The cheap wallet creaked when I closed it, like even it knew it wasn't built to last. My heart pounded. I thought, this is the moment. This is the proof. It's not in my head. They don't see me. You've had moments like that, right? When the truth hits so hard, you can't unsee it. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. Instead, a heat rose in my chest, a mix of shame and fury. Shame because I let myself hope, again, that maybe this Christmas would be different. Fury because the message was clear. No matter how hard I worked, no matter what I achieved, I would always be less than him in their eyes. The party went on around me. Laughter, clinking glasses, Brandon revving his new car for the neighbors to hear. My mom waved me over for family photos, but I shook my head. I couldn't stand there pretending, not this time. So I slipped out the back door. The cold air bit my cheeks, and for a second, I let myself breathe, away from the lights, the noise, the staged perfection. That dollar bill was still in my hand. I squeezed it tight until it crumpled, then shoved it into my pocket. Here's the question I need you to answer for yourself. If your sibling got a Porsche and you got $1, would you just swallow it and smile? Or would something inside you finally snap? That night, something inside me cracked. And once it cracked, there was no going back. I went upstairs to freshen up, which was code for getaway before my voice cracked. The hallway was quiet, the carpet too soft, the family photos lined up like proof of a life I never really lived. My old room still smelled like dryer sheets and dust. I closed the door, leaned my forehead against it, and breathed until the heat in my chest cooled to a low, steady burn. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was looking for my phone charger. My purse was a jumble: lip balm, loose bobby pins, a receipt from the coffee shop near my apartment, the cheap wallet, now heavier with a single dollar. And then there it was. A slim blue envelope I didn't recognize, unsealed. No name on the front, random enough that I almost tossed it aside. I slid a finger under the flap: registration, insurance, the Porsche Taycan, the VIN, the policy number. And there, in black print, the line that made my stomach drop twice. Registered owner, Emily Lynn, my full name, my address, my driver's license number. My hands went cold, then hot, then numb. I checked again, like maybe if I stared long enough the letters would rearrange into someone else's name. They didn't. Why would a brand new Porsche be registered to me? Why would my name be on the policy? Why would my dad, a spreadsheet saint who triple checks the tip at restaurants, make that kind of mistake? Downstairs, the house erupted in another wave of laughter. Brandon must have found the hidden compartment or the custom sound system or some other feature that cost more than my rent. I heard my dad's voice through the heat vents, confident, controlled, always a little too loud when money was involved. I sat on the edge of my bed and felt the room tilt. You know that feeling when the world clicks into focus in a way you don't want? When the things you've brushed off as not a big deal line up and point to one answer you can't ignore? Flashback. Me at 16, standing in a parking lot under a broken streetlight, my Civic coughing itself to sleep. "Call us in the morning," Dad said, even though the snow was coming down in fat, mean clumps. Brandon, a freshman, had a brand new phone and a ride home. I had a $30 tow and a thermos of cold coffee. "You're independent," Mom said later, smiling like it was a compliment. Independent meant alone. Back to the envelope. Back to the letters that didn't lie. I flipped to the insurance summary: premiums, coverage. Notes about preferred rates, an excellent driving record, my record. My years of driving like the person who can't afford a ticket. My boring, careful, grown-up habits suddenly became a coupon for someone else's recklessness. And when Brandon sped or clipped a curb or did something dumb because a 20-year-old with a supercar often does, whose rates would jump? Whose name would be dragged through the paperwork? Whose liability would balloon? What would happen if there was an accident with injuries? If something serious happened and lawyers started circling? Would they look at Brandon, the real driver, or me, the pretty name on the dotted line? Here's the part that stung the most. They didn't even think I'd notice. They counted on me being polite, quiet, grateful, that word again. I took my phone and, on instinct, searched my email for my dad's messages. He's a creature of routine. He forwards everything. There it was, threads with the insurance agent, the dealership, the finance department at the lot. Phrases that made my skin crawl: keeping costs reasonable, using Emily's info, no need to change primary driver, clean record. A screenshot of my license I never sent, a PDF of my pay stub from months ago. He'd kept a folder, he'd planned it. A laugh jammed in my throat. It wasn't humorous. It was the sound you make when the floor drops out and you're still somehow upright. I pictured my dad, eyes shining with a solution, selling it to my mom like a clever workaround. I pictured Brandon, who probably didn't even know, because why would he need to? Things appear for him. Doors open before he reaches them. I stood. I didn't plan anything spectacular. There was no cinematic music swell, just a static hum in my ears, the kind that follows a fire alarm. I put the papers back in the envelope, slid it into my bag, and stared at myself in the mirror. Mascara steady, smile gone. A stranger who finally recognized her own face. I should have marched downstairs and demanded an explanation. I should have asked, why my name? Why my record? Why my life as your discount code? But here's the truth. I didn't want more speeches about family finances or practical solutions, or we did what we had to do. I didn't want the performance. I didn't want the spotlight flipped on me like I was the ungrateful one. A second flashback hit, faster than the first. 5th grade, school assembly. Brandon on stage for a participation ribbon, my parents' front row. Same week I won the regional writing contest and read in a library basement to 3 strangers and my English teacher. My dad said, we couldn't make both, as if physics kept them from driving across town. You understand? Mom added. I did. I learned to understand the wrong things. I grabbed my coat, my scarf, my keys, not the Porsche fob, not yet. I slipped back into the hallway. The laughter floated up again, warm and smug. I padded downstairs, not towards the living room, but to the study. My dad's desk was a monument to order, pens aligned, stapler polished, a coaster with a golf course logo. The bottom drawer was locked, the top wasn't. There, in a glass tray, sat a handful of key fobs, house, office, garage, and the new one, heavy and sleek, with the Porsche crest shining like a dare. I touched it, expecting an alarm to scream, nothing. Silence, then the muffled bass of a Christmas song through the walls. I didn't take it. Not yet. I needed one more minute. I slid into the chair and opened the desk browser. Bookmarks, neatly labeled. I typed the policy number from the envelope. The portal opened. My name smiled back in sans serif, primary, Emily. Additional driver, none. Liability, high. Deductible, low. Someone who knows they're going to use it. The anger shifted from a blaze to something clean and sharp. Fear edged in too. If I did nothing, I became responsible for everything. If I confronted them, they'd spin, minimize, call it a misunderstanding. If I exposed it, I'd scorch the last bridge I had left. Maybe that bridge was ash already. You've been here, haven't you? At the fork where both paths hurt, but only one lets you keep your self-respect. I closed the browser. I put the fob in my pocket. It clicked against the cheap wallet, a ridiculous chime of 2 symbols that told the same story. I stood, smoothed my coat, and walked toward the kitchen. My mom intercepted me in the hallway, cheeks flushed, a fresh flute of champagne in hand. There you are, she sang, like she hadn't noticed I'd disappeared. Come take a photo with Brandon and the car. The car looks great, I said. My voice sounded even, too even. How did you handle the insurance? With his record and all. She blinked, a tiny skip in her smile. Your father handled it, she said quickly, then glanced toward the living room. You know how he is. Always finds a way. That was all I needed to hear. Not a denial, not surprise. Just always finds a way. I nodded and moved past her. The patio door was cold under my palm. Outside, the night air tasted like eucalyptus and frost. The Porsche sat under the porch lights, a sculpture of money and ego. I walked around it once, slow, fingers tucked into my sleeves, heart steadying with each step. The leather interior reflected the house lights in soft, buttery waves, a car made for speed, a car wearing my name like a mask. I stood by the driver's door and asked myself the question I'd avoided for years. If I didn't protect me, who would? I pressed the fob. The handles unfurled with a quiet, expensive sigh. I didn't climb in. Not yet. I closed it again and put the fob back in my pocket. I needed to pack. I needed essentials. I needed to leave the right words and take the right ones with me. Back in the kitchen, I found a notepad by the fridge. A grocery list half started. Eggs, butter, rosemary. I flipped to a clean page and wrote, in small, deliberate letters, "Thank you for the car registered in my name. I'll be keeping it. Do not contact me." I read it twice. No apologies, no explanations, no jokes to make anyone comfortable. My legs moved on their own, to the back stairwell, up to my room, to my suitcase under the bed. I threw in jeans, sweaters, a couple of work blouses, underwear, socks, my laptop, chargers, the beat-up journal I keep and never show anyone. I looked at the bookshelf. Yearbooks, a trophy for something I barely remember, a framed photo of me and Brandon when things were still simple. I left the frame and took the photo, slid it into the journal, closed it. The house murmured. Distant clinks, a burst of laughter, the recorded voice of a singer holding a long, perfect note. I zipped the suitcase. It sounded loud, obscene, like a zipper in a quiet church. I paused, counting 10 Mississippi in my head, then lifted the handle. Downstairs again, the note by the fridge, the fob in my pocket, my breath steady. I looked once toward the living room archway. I saw them in a mirror's edge, my parents glowing in the glow they built for themselves, Brandon a blue blur of motion and joy. None of them looked toward the kitchen. None of them noticed the door, or the envelope in my bag, or the way I had already turned my face toward the night. You might think this is impulsive. Maybe you're right. Or maybe this is what happens when a person who's been polite for too long finally decides politeness is just another word for silence. Would you stay? Would you sign your name to a mess you didn't make? Or would you do what I did next? If you've ever found a truth with your name on it, one you didn't ask for, share this. Someone needs to hear it tonight. Someone who keeps swallowing "be grateful" like medicine. You don't owe your peace to other people's convenience. The kitchen door clicked behind me like a tiny verdict. I eased across the patio, breath fogging in pale ribbons, suitcase rolling softly over the concrete. The Porsche waited under the porch lights, a still animal, chrome eyes catching every glint. I could hear the party through the walls, laughter, a clink, Brandon's shout of wonder again, as if joy had chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. I opened the driver's door. Warm leather hugged the night air. The cabin smelled like new, stitched hide, plastic not yet touched by time, a hint of adhesive. My fingers trembled on the start button, then settled. The car woke with a low electric hum, like a secret agreeing to keep itself. The screen bloomed. Navigation pulsed. I set it to Santa Cruz because the ocean felt like the farthest thing I could reach without leaving the state. Seatbelt, mirrors, a breath, another. Inhale until it hurt. Exhale until I could hear my own pulse slow. I backed out, tires whispering over the circular drive. The house shrank in the camera, the trees' lights flickering like a heartbeat. I turned onto the street and let the gate close behind me. Silence. Just the faint whir of motors and the winter air moving over the roofline. Palo Alto's wide streets were a lattice of sleeping trees and careful lawns. I kept it under the limit. Irony, right? The careful driver in the fast car. Because even in this moment, the stakes were simple and brutal. If I crash, I pay. If I speed, I pay. If anything happens, it lands on me. Say it out loud. Accident equals my name, my record, my rates, my life. The first call came before I hit El Camino. Dad. The screen lit the cabin and my face. I let it ring. It stopped. Started again. Mom. Then Dad again. Brandon. Home. The car filled with the buzz of a hive I didn't belong to. I toggled Do Not Disturb and kept driving. The city thinned. Stanford's dark edges slid past. I took Page Mill toward 280, a ribbon of asphalt cutting the hills. The sky felt bigger out here, a black bowl with a handful of cold stars. I pressed the accelerator and felt the car pull me forward with clean force, no roar, just glide. It was like riding a thought. My chest hurt. Relief and terror held hands. I was leaving, but I didn't know where this road ended for me. You know that feeling when you've been holding a plank position too long and the shake goes from your arms into your bones? That was my whole body. I gripped the wheel harder than I needed to, then loosened when I realized my knuckles hurt. Another call punched through the quiet. Voicemail notification after voicemail notification, stacking like bad news. I turned the audio on for one. Dad's voice, clipped, legal. "Return the car. This is theft. We will involve the police." Then Mom's, wet and fragile. "Sweetheart, come back, please. Don't embarrass the family." Brandon's message was a tangle of rage and adolescent panic. "What is wrong with you?" "That's my car. You're crazy. Give it back. Now." The words bounced around the glass and plastic and leather. I turned them off and listened instead to the electric motor breathe. The car and I were the only two honest things moving. On 280 South, the traffic thinned to ghosts. Tail lights floated in lines, then disappeared. Hills rose and fell, the kind of night where distances lie. Santa Cruz looked close on the map, but the miles stretched like taffy. I rolled my shoulders. The seat warmed under me, my cheeks cooled, and with the road came the spiral. What if they did call the police? What if a patrol car slid up behind me, lit me in red and blue, and I had to explain a story that didn't sound real even to me? I rehearsed the facts in my head like I was studying for an exam. Registration. My name, insurance. My name, policy. My record, ownership, mine. Repetition calmed me. Facts are good. Facts don't apologize. An exit sign flashed. A billboard promised a mortgage rate that looked like fiction. I passed a rest stop glowing like a tiny ship in the dark, my throat scratched. A sip of water from a bottle in the console tasted like metal and mint. The car purred when I changed lanes, smooth and animal sheer. I tried a breath exercise my therapist once showed me in a different lifetime. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. It didn't fix the ache, but it put it in a box where I could see it. The ache had a name now. It wasn't just, "I'm ungrateful," or "I'm dramatic." It was, "I'm done being used. Give pain a handle and you can carry it." Halfway down the grade, my phone vibrated with a new tone. Jessica. Of course she'd text. "You okay? Your mom just called me. I'm on my couch. Call me if you need me." The simplicity of it cracked something good inside me. I typed at a red light. "Driving. I'll call soon. I'm safe." Then I put the phone face down. Past Los Gatos, the highway tightened and darkened. The mountains shouldered closer. I took 17 cautiously, curves where drivers forget physics. A truck loomed, then fell away. The guardrail blurred, then steadied. The forest smell seeped in through the vents, redwood and damp earth, like a mercy. I kept whispering the math to myself. If I go fast and anything happens, the bill is mine, the lawsuit is mine, the record is mine, slow is smart, slow is mine. For a minute I wept. No sound. Just tears pressing hot and then cooling as the air moved. It wasn't sadness alone. It was the body saying, "You're doing it. You're doing the thing you thought you couldn't do." I wiped my cheeks on my sleeve and kept the car between the lines. A deer flashed at the shoulder, pale and sudden, then vanished. My heart banged once, hard, then settled. The road began to relax, the curves easing, the night opening. The sky smelled like salt. It surprised me every time, the way ocean air can find you before you see water. My phone pulsed again, Dad. He'd switched to texts. "We will report the car stolen. Then, a minute later, consider your future employment. This will get around." The threat felt smaller at midnight on a mountain than it would have at noon in his kitchen. The car didn't care. The road didn't care. The earth beneath me didn't care about his voice. I let the messages stack without opening them. Another thought slid in with the salt air. If I turned around now, if I parked the Porsche in the driveway and crept upstairs, everything would reset. The house would swallow this moment. Tomorrow would be smiles and cautions and an unspoken pact to never speak of my name on those papers. They'd pat the truth down until it stopped moving. I knew that script. I'd acted in it for years. The sign for Santa Cruz appeared like a promise. A few more miles and the highway spat me into town. Streetlights, low houses, a diner with 3 cars out front, a surfer mural you could see even at night. I followed the blue line to the edge of the water because I needed to see it. Needed proof that I had crossed a border I couldn't uncross. I parked near the wharf and cut the motor. The sudden quiet felt like a blanket. Waves shoved inside against pilings. A gull called once, sleepy and annoyed. Far down the boardwalk, a neon sign buzzed. The car ticked with the sound of cooling, new machines settling into night. I sat there, hands in my lap, watching my breath turn to ghosts and disappear. No one texted for a whole minute. Then 2, then 5. The silence felt like a bomb. I counted the posts along the wharf, 16 of them, then lost count. I took the photo of me and Brandon from my journal and held it under the dome light. 2 kids with wind-burned cheeks and popsicle mouths on a beach, before scores were tallied, before favoritism hardened into policy. I touched the corner of the photo and put it back. I said it out loud to the windshield because sometimes you have to hear yourself to believe yourself. I'm safe. I'm here. I'm not the one who did anything wrong. The words didn't echo. They settled in the cabin like a pact. You might be thinking, but what if they're right? What if this is too much? I asked myself that too. Then I answered with the only math that mattered. They used my name. They used my record. They took my safety and turned it into their savings. If you've ever been the discount someone else used to buy a life they didn't earn, you know this feeling? It's not drama. It's clarity. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and listened to the ocean breathe for both of us. My phone was face down. The keys were in the cup holder. My hands had stopped shaking. Fear was still here, but it had a seatbelt on. Relief cracked its knuckles. For the first time all night, I let my shoulders drop and stayed dropped. I didn't plan the future in that parking spot. I didn't decide the next 10 moves. I chose one. I chose to sleep. In the morning, I'd find coffee. I'd call Jessica. I'd look up a lawyer. I'd figure out where to put the suitcase. But for this hour, for this night, I let the city's lights paint a path over the bay and told myself the truth I was finally willing to believe. I drove out of their story. I can write my own. If you've ever steered yourself away from a life that kept you small, tell me in the comments how you knew it was time. Someone is reading tonight who needs your map. Morning came thin and gray, the kind of winter light that doesn't try very hard. I woke in the car with a stiff neck and the taste of stale mint in my mouth. Waves kept their slow promise behind the wharf, pushing and pulling like a giant breathing in its sleep. For the first time in years, no one expected me anywhere at 9 a.m. No brunch, no photo, no performance. Just me, a suitcase, and a car with my name on paper, and a story I wasn't going to keep. Coffee first. A tiny spot near the beach, chalkboard menu, barista with a beanie and a kind smile. "Rough night?" he asked. I nodded. He slid me an extra espresso shot on the house. The cup warmed my hands and brought my brain back online. I texted Jessica. "Safe? Santa Cruz. We'll call later." Then I opened a note on my phone and wrote a list with a shaky thumb. Lawyer, apartment, job board, sell car, 4 lines, 4 ways to prove I wasn't running. I was rebuilding. Selling the Porsche felt obvious and impossible at once. It was beautiful. It was bait. Every mile I put on it linked me tighter to a plan I hadn't made. So I drove to a luxury dealership 20 minutes inland, the kind with citrus water and men in soft jackets using the word bespoke like it belonged to them. I told the truth and told it fast. Title, insurance, my name. No, I didn't want to consign it. No, I didn't need a trade-in. Yes, I understood I'd lose value. Freedom has fees. While they ran the numbers, I walked the showroom alone. Silence sat on the polished floors. In the glass reflection, I looked smaller than I felt. When the manager came back with an offer that nicked my pride but not my resolve, I said yes. We signed. Pens scratched, copies printed. I put the check in my bag, sat in the bathroom stall for a minute, and cried as quietly as a person can cry in a room with good acoustics. Relief sometimes sounds like grief. Then I washed my face and left the Porsche behind like a story I had finally finished reading. Next, a place to sleep that didn't have seatbelts. Craigslist, then a rental site, then another. I toured a studio above a florist, creaky stairs, sun-worn windows, a radiator that rattled its consonants. The landlord, a woman with silver hair and a t-shirt that said, "Support your local library," looked at my tired face and didn't make me sell my entire life story. "First month deposit, no pets?" she asked. I nodded. Keys changed hands with the soft weight of a decision you won't regret. I bought cheap sheets, a pan, a knife that would need sharpening every other week, and 2 bowls in the wrong shade of blue. My suitcase slid into the corner like it was learning the shape of home. Outside, the florist watered eucalyptus and laughed with a customer. The air smelled like green things and wet cardboard. I opened the window and let it in. Jessica called that night. I told her part of it. Not the jagged edges, just enough. "Proud of you," she said. "Tomorrow, Peter Wilson, he's good." A name, an anchor. I set an alarm and slept under unfamiliar light with the check tucked under my pillow, like a kid in her first tooth. The lawyer's office sat over a bakery, which felt like a sign. Peter was steady. He read the documents, clicked his tongue once, and said words that didn't sing but soothed. "You acted within your rights. We'll notify them formally. Keep records of everything. Don't engage directly. A plan. Less dramatic than the last 24 hours. Exactly what I needed. When I left, I bought a croissant and ate it on the curb outside, buttery flakes landing on my jeans like confetti for a parade of one. I spent the afternoon on job boards, blunt and brave in my cover letters. I mentioned outcomes, not wounds. By evening, I had 3 short interviews scheduled and 1 longer one for a boutique agency that did good work for companies that did better work. I liked the way their homepage read. Plain, human, no slogans that sounded like they were trying to sell me back to myself. Days learned my name. I built a routine out of small choices that didn't require permission. Mornings at the coffee shop. Midday walks to the wharf with a sandwich, watching the water argue with the pilings. Afternoons drafting strategies and case studies, reminding myself I was good at this, not just lucky. Evenings with a library card and a basket of laundry I now wished I'd had in college. I bought a second-hand bike with a squeaky bell and rode it to the market on Saturdays, hair in a ponytail, cheeks stung pink in the ocean wind. People arrived in the gentle way real people do. Olivia from the florist waved me in one morning and handed me a stem of something that smelled like lemons and fresh starts. "You must be upstairs," she said. "We have a Thursday potluck. Bring anything, or bring nothing. Just come." At the potluck, I met a teacher who loved bad puns, a cook who knew where all the free concerts lived, and a graphic designer who offered me a spare lamp the way some people offer a hug. We talked about city council drama and trailheads, not about cars or families or what $1 means when someone hands it to you like a lesson. I left with Tupperware and felt my rib cage loosen. A small thing changed the air. I bought a used hatchback from a lot with honest dents and a salesman who admitted coffee stains without flinching. It started every time I asked it to. It asked for regular gas and no praise. It fit me. Not the girl who needed to be dazzled into silence. The woman who wanted to get to work and home again with money left for lemons and library fines. Work found me the way right things do. Slowly, then all at once. The boutique agency offered a trial project. They liked my first draft. They liked my second more. I sat in a video call in my Blue Bowl apartment and watched faces nod when I talked. No one called me independent like it meant, you don't need us. They asked questions, they said thank you, they paid on time. One afternoon, after a clean handoff of a campaign I loved, I closed my laptop and laughed out loud at nothing. Not the everything is perfect laugh, the this is possible laugh. I won't lie, peace felt thin at first, like tissue paper you're afraid to tear. Some nights I lay awake and waited for the old scripts to knock. Are you sure? Are you ungrateful? Are you going to regret this? They came. I let them speak. Then I answered with facts and the low hum of my own life moving forward. I put the dollar bill in a jar on my bookshelf, not as a shrine to bitterness, as a marker. Day one of saving something that wasn't money, my dignity. Every time I dusted around it, I felt the smallest spark of joy. People talk about burn it all down. Sometimes you light one candle and then another and call that a fire. And then, because stories don't end when you decide they should, I noticed the change in the room. The air had been light, and suddenly it wasn't. Not heavy, just noticed. Like when the music in a cafe shifts from bright acoustic to something with minor chords. You feel it before you hear it. It was a ping. Just a notification on my phone, the kind you get 100 times a day and never remember. I glanced at the screen. A subject line tugged like a loose thread. My name. A word I didn't expect. Nothing dramatic. Nothing you'd write a movie score under. But enough to make me put the dish towel down and sit with my back against the counter, phone in my palm, heartbeat in my throat. I had thought the story was done. Sold the car, found the key, built the beginning. But quiet can hide echoes, and some echoes find you, even in a town where the ocean says, start over, start over, start over. Before I open that message with you, tell me this. Have you ever felt your life soften and brighten, only to sense the horizon shadow again? How did you keep your calm without closing your heart? Drop your answer below. Someone reading needs your steady voice. The notification that tugged at me wasn't dramatic. No all caps, no flames, just a subject line in our company newsletter I'd never bothered to read. Spotlight. Holiday joy around the team. I opened it with coffee in one hand and a dish towel in the other. The first photo was someone's golden retriever in a sweater. The second was a toddler in a cardboard spaceship. The third made my mouth go dry. A driveway I knew too well. The tree in the window. A blue Porsche catching the lights like a fish underwater. And a caption, "Congrats to Emily L. Proud new owner, courtesy of the world's coolest parents." I didn't feel the mug slip. I heard it. A ceramic click against the counter, a slow spin, a ring of coffee blooming like a bruise. The room tilted. My name in bold. My initials pinned to a story that wasn't just false. It was the negative of the truth. In the next hour, the whispers became words. A ping on Slack. Trust fund goals. Then a thread I wasn't tagged in but could see because someone forgot to set privacy. I thought she was self-made. Must be nice. That car is like $120,000. A DM from someone who had mentored me once. Proud of you. Family support is beautiful. And then, mercifully, Jessica. This is wrong. Breathe. We fix it step by step. I didn't answer anyone. I couldn't. I put the towel over the coffee blot and watched it soak up a small circle of my morning. I opened my laptop and went hunting for the beginning, not the rumor, facts, paper, the ugly, clean kind, credit report first. I'd pulled it last year at tax time. I pulled it again, hands steady because my brain wasn't. The page loaded, and it was like someone had switched the radio from static to a station I didn't want. A new account. A line I didn't recognize with a bank I did. Opened 2 months ago. Amount, more than my rent for a year. Co-borrower, none. Primary, me. No, back. Refresh, another source. Same story. Another, a soft inquiry from a dealership the week of Christmas, which made sense in a sick way. A hard inquiry from the bank a month before, which didn't. My heart thumped once, twice, then fast and useless. I clicked into the details, an address I knew, a phone number that was close to mine and not mine. A note. Income verified. A scanned document icon I could open with a password I didn't have. I called the bank. The fraud department put me on hold to the sound of an upbeat piano that felt like mockery. When the representative came on, her voice was human. She asked questions I could answer and one I couldn't. Did you authorize anyone to apply on your behalf? Number. Did anyone have access to your social? A copy of your license? I pictured my father's neat folders, the way he keeps paper like some people keep family recipes. Yes. We'll email you a secure link, she said. Upload any documents showing misuse. We need a police report number, an FTC identity theft affidavit. I'm sorry this happened. Sorry sounded like a blanket too small to cover what it needed to cover, but I appreciated the warmth anyway. I hung up and called Peter. He answered on the second ring, which felt like grace. I told him about the newsletter, the account, the inquiries. He told me to breathe, then gave me a checklist like a rope. Freeze all 3 bureaus, file the FTC affidavit, file a local police report for the paper trail, forward him the bank call summary, and do not engage with my parents. We will send a formal notice, he said, that any debts or accounts opened using your identity without consent will be disputed. You will not be liable. It's going to be work. But it's work with steps. I did the steps. Freeze. The websites moved like molasses, but they moved. I watched the confirmation email stack. Experian, security freeze confirmed, TransUnion, done, Equifax, locked. I filled out the FTC form, typed my name on lines that asked for a story, and kept my sentences short to keep from crying. I printed the affidavit at the copy shop down the block, where the owner knew my face and not my business. I walked to the police station, hands sweating through the paperwork, and sat across from an officer who looked tired enough to be kind. This happens more than you think, he said, which made me feel better for exactly half a second and worse after that. He took my statement. He gave me a number. A number is not safety. It is at least a key. When I stepped back into the sunlight, my phone shook. Slack again. A direct message from the one person I didn't want to hear from and couldn't avoid. My manager. Congrats. Saw the newsletter. Quick question. Some folks are curious about your availability for that travel next quarter. If you've got family support, maybe we can lean on you a bit more. The words were sweet as a trap. I could feel the shape of a narrative harden, one where I was the lucky one, the flexible one, the one who could afford to pick up the pieces for other people. I typed, deleted. I finally wrote, "The newsletter is inaccurate. I didn't receive that car as a gift. I sold a vehicle recently that was registered to me without my full consent. I'm addressing a personal legal matter and will share what I can when I can. For now, please don't make assumptions about my circumstances." I read it 3 times, took out the heat, left in the boundary, and hit send. The response came fast. Understood. Let me know if there's anything the team can do, which could mean everything or nothing, depending on the day. I closed the app and let the quiet sit. Then the text from my father arrived like a weather change. Not anger this time, strategy. The company post reflects poorly on us. Please clarify to your colleagues that this was a misunderstanding. You are making us look like criminals. I stared at the words until they turned into shapes. I didn't answer. I forwarded the message to Peter and put my phone face down under a book because I needed something with weight to keep it there. I wish I could tell you I handled the next part gracefully. I didn't. I paced. I ate a banana I didn't want. I Googled phrases I already knew the answers to: coerced consent, identity misuse, adult-child financial abuse. The last term had a mix of checklists and essays that made my throat tight. Do you know how strange it is to see your life translated into bullet points? To find your feelings in someone else's clinical vocabulary and realize you're not special? You're just one of many? By late afternoon, the Slack thread had grown new branches. Someone made a joke about Nepo sleighs. Someone else pushed back with a single brave line. Not cool. A colleague I barely knew sent a DM that said, "If you ever want to talk off the record, I'm here. Been there. Different story." The kindness landed where it needed to. I thanked them. I didn't explain. I opened my bank app one more time and stared at the incoming check from the dealership, a number that meant safety and also responsibility. I made a list of bills. I made a smaller list of joys, lemons, library holds, a better set of knives when the time was right. The future had a shape. The middle of the story had a storm. Here's the pattern interrupt I promised you, because this is where my brain snapped from slow to fast. What would you do if your own parent used your name to build their convenience and your workplace celebrated the lie? Say it out loud. Would you swallow it because family? Would you write a post and risk the fallout? Would you file charges? Would you walk into Christmas dinner next year like nothing happened? Don't answer for future you. Answer for the you holding your phone right now. I didn't post. Not yet. I did something that felt smaller and braver at once. I scheduled a meeting with HR. I brought my affidavit, my police report number, and a written statement that said the newsletter contained an error. I asked them to remove the image and caption. The HR rep blinked, then nodded, then apologized in a way that felt real. "We will fix this," she said. "I'm sorry we didn't verify." It came down within an hour. The internet never really forgets, but at least the official version stopped lying with my name. Relief didn't land like a parade. It landed like a chair offered when you didn't know you were still standing. I sat. I breathed. I made tea because tea is what you do when your hands need something better than your phone. That night, when the city got quiet and the ocean thudded like a slow drum, I opened my journal and wrote one sentence per line, like a ladder I could climb back up if I slipped. I am not crazy. I am not cruel. I am not ungrateful. I am clear. The words didn't fight me. They settled and let me sleep. Morning brought another email from Peter. He'd contacted the bank formally. He'd sent a cease and desist to my parents with language so measured it cut sharper than any scream. He told me to brace for noise. He told me we were doing the right thing. He told me to keep records and keep breathing. Noise came? Of course it did. A cousin called to ask why I was dragging the family. An uncle sent a paragraph about respect, as if respect were a one-way street I was blocking with my little hatchback. Brandon texted wow and nothing else, which somehow hurt more than anything he'd said before. I put their messages in a folder named Hold and didn't open it. And still, life kept going in the way life insists on. I met a deadline. I learned my neighbor's dog's name. I bought stamps. I watered a plant and didn't kill it. The world didn't implode because I chose the truth. It tilted, and then it steadied. But the choice I didn't want to face sat in the corner like a closed door. You see it, right? Silence or sunlight. Protect their image and let the lie grow roots at work, maybe everywhere. Or pull it up, expose it, risk that people would say I was dramatic, disloyal, unloving. Here's the twist. Both felt like losses. Only one felt like losing me. If it were you, if your own name had been turned into a coupon and your independence rebranded as privilege, would you stay quiet? Or would you speak and take the hit? Tell me in the comments what you would do. Because the next step isn't neat, it isn't simple, it's real. And real is what I promised you when I started this story. The invite went out as a calendar block. Team Forum, Friday, 11 a.m. Same link we used for product demos and birthday songs. Not dramatic, not special, just a square of time where people show up and see who we are. I asked for 10 minutes. HR added 15 for questions. My manager sent a thumbs up emoji and the kind of smile that means, let's keep this clean. I closed my laptop and practiced what it would sound like to tell the truth without turning it into a fire that burned me too. I chose a white t-shirt and a navy sweater because I wanted to look like myself, not a spokesperson, not a victim, not a headline. I brewed coffee I didn't drink. I set the documents on my desk in a neat stack. The policy page with my name as primary, the bank email confirmation, the FTC affidavit number, the police report number, Peter's letter. Facts, not feelings, though my feelings were loud enough to rattle the windows. At 10:58, I clicked join. Faces tiled into a patchwork. Engineers in hoodies, designers with warm lamps, sales with big smiles. HR in the corner square, quiet and ready. The chat bloomed with good mornings and the usual jokes. Someone wrote, "We love transparency days." And my stomach did a small, mean flip. My manager opened with housekeeping, a launch date, PTO reminders. A brief note that the newsletter had a correction and we would talk about it. Then he said my name, and the whole grid leaned in. "Hi," I began, and my voice came out steady. "I asked for a few minutes to clarify something and to give you context you deserve. I also asked HR to be here, a ping." Someone entered late. The grid shuffled. I breathed. "Some of you saw a photo in the holiday newsletter last week," I continued. It showed a blue Porsche in a driveway that used to be mine. The caption said I was the proud new owner, courtesy of my parents. That was not true. Silence snapped the call into shape. No keyboards, no clinks. I lifted the first page so the camera could catch the header, but not my address. This is an insurance policy with my name listed as the primary, not shared, not gifted to me. Registered to me without my full consent. The car was driven by someone else, frequently. Any accident, any ticket, any lawsuit, those would have landed on my record and my wallet. I set it down. I discovered this at Christmas. I took the car, I sold it. I filed with the FTC and the police. I froze my credit. I asked our HR team to remove the newsletter image and caption to prevent further harm. They did. I'm grateful. The chat hiccuped. "Thank you for sharing," then stilled again. "I'm telling you this for 2 reasons," I said. First, because rumors fill any vacuum, and I would rather risk vulnerability than be defined by a lie. Second, because I want to make a boundary clear. Family is complicated, work shouldn't be. Please don't make assumptions about anyone's resources or support based on a photo, a rumor, or a car, especially not mine. My manager nodded, small and sincere. HR unmuted long enough to say, "We apologize for the error and for any impact," and dropped back to listening. A sales lead raised her hand. "Emily, thank you. Do you need anything from us?" She winced at the bluntness. "I mean, practically." 2 things, I said. Room to focus on my work and the benefit of the doubt when you don't have the whole story. The rest I'm handling with counsel. A designer typed in chat, "Appreciate the clarity. It takes guts." Someone else added, "Been through identity theft. If you need tips, DM me." The grid softened. Faces that had been curious shifted to kind. Then the ping I knew would come arrived anyway. A text banner slid across my screen, the kind you can't fully mute because life doesn't respect calendar blocks. "Dad, do not defame us. Consider consequences at work. We are speaking with counsel." The words looked like the old house. Polished, cold, arranged for effect. I didn't react. I didn't need to. The next slide of my stack was Peter's letter. For transparency, I said, and read a line that mattered. Miss, Lynn asserts sole ownership of any accounts opened in her name without consent is disputed. Any attempts to characterize such accounts as gifts are false and harmful. Please direct future communications to counsel. The legal tone made the call even quieter. I let the silence stand. Silence can be a scaffold when you're building a new shape for the truth. Questions came carefully, like people stepping on a dock at night. How can we be more mindful about these spotlights? HR answered that one. Verification, opt-in, captions approved by the person in the photo. What if this happens to someone else here? I answered that. Resources, checklists, the freeze links, the affidavit. Are you okay? Came from somewhere I couldn't place, soft enough to be anonymous. I told the truth. I'm not fine. I'm functional. There's a difference. I'm sleeping, I'm working, I'm supported. I don't need pity. I need accuracy and space. I'll get the rest. We still had 7 minutes on the clock. My manager looked ready to move on. I wasn't. This part was for me. I want to address one more thing, I said, and heat rose in my neck. Some of you congratulated me last week. You weren't cruel. You were reacting to what you were shown. But I want to name how easy it is to rewrite someone's story with a single shiny picture. It happens fast, it sticks. If you catch yourself doing it, about me, about anyone, pause, ask, or better, wait. Accuracy is kindness. A few people nodded. One person clapped. Another chimed an emoji that looked like a small spark. Okay, I said, and let out a breath that shook the tiniest bit. That's all I had. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Emily, my manager said, voice like a hand on my shoulder without the weight. We appreciate you bringing this to us. We ended the section early. The meeting moved to a product update. Charts blossomed where my face had been. I stayed in the call window, mic off, camera off, watching the bar move across the bottom. Work went on, as it always does, indifferent and constant. When it ended, my DMs lit. Proud of you. Here if you need to vent. Hey, unrelated, great pull-through on the Q1 deck. The last one made me laugh. A surprised, grateful sound. The world had cracked and kept doing emails. There's comfort in that kind of ridiculous. Then the phone shivered again. Mom, you humiliated us. Family matters are private. Call me now. I put the phone face down and opened a new note on my laptop instead. I wrote 3 lines I could lean on when the wind picked up. I told the truth. I set a boundary. I stayed kind. I took a picture of the note and saved it under a name that would make me find it later. Proof of calm. Peter called at 1:15. You did well, he said, like a teacher who lets you know the test was not a trick. Expect escalation. Don't respond. Send me everything. What does escalation look like? I asked. Noise, he said. Attempts to involve your employer. Attempts to rewrite the facts again. Maybe a letter. Sometimes silence is the loudest. Remember your plan? The plan. The plan was boring and strong. Document, forward, breathe. Keep my job. Keep my new life pointing forward. I went for a walk to move the adrenaline out of my muscles. The ocean was the same as yesterday and older than any problem I could name. A kid threw bread at gulls and screamed with delight when they caught it. A couple argued softly, then laughed at themselves, then kissed like they had invented forgiveness. A surfer zipped his wetsuit and trotted toward cold water like courage were a hobby. The world kept making metaphors I didn't have to force. Back home, I opened the window and let the salt air clean the room. I made toast and ate it with honey like a patient person. I put the stack of documents back in their folder and slid it onto a shelf. Then I sat on the floor, because chairs felt too formal, and let the quiet unfurl. That's when the email arrived. Not mean, not pleading, just careful. Subject: formal notice. From a law firm I recognized from a logo on my father's golf shirts. I read it once, twice. It said little and implied more. Accusations of defamation, demands to retract unnamed statements, a request to communicate only through counsel. It was meant to scare me back into a box. It almost did. I forwarded it to Peter without comment. He replied in 2 minutes. Acknowledged? I'll respond. You did nothing wrong today. Eat something. Hydrate. I sipped water because the instruction felt like a rope. My phone buzzed with one more message, the kind that lands where the armor doesn't reach. Brandon, you didn't have to blast us at your job. Congrats on being the martyr. Enjoy your attention. My fingers itched. I wanted to explain the difference between attention and accountability. I wanted to ask if he knew what a policy looked like with someone else's name on it. I didn't. I put the phone back under the book. And then, like a tide turning, the thing I had hoped for without letting myself expect it began to arrive. A message from a colleague who had been quiet in the call. Thank you for modeling boundaries. Some of us needed to see that. Another from an exec I rarely spoke to. Good on you for handling this professionally. Please loop me if you experience any internal pressure. These were not parades. They were doorstops keeping the world from swinging shut. That evening, I opened my laptop to finish a deck. Words came easier than they had all week. The part of my brain that makes sense of things had been sharpening on real life. Slides were suddenly simple. Problem, insight, plan, proof. I smiled at the symmetry. When I shut it down, the room held a new kind of quiet. Not fragile, not temporary, not the brittle hush after a slammed door. The quiet of a space you earned. You might think the high point of a story like this is the moment the bad guys get hauled away, or the check arrives, or the apology lands. Maybe. Sometimes. Today the climax was smaller and louder. I told the truth in a room full of people who mattered to my future, and the room stayed with me. The payoff wasn't applause, it was the absence of shame. If you've ever considered speaking up at work and swallowed it because you didn't want to be that person, hear me. You don't owe your silence to other people's comfort. When the stakes are your name, your record, your dignity, short sentences count, facts count, boundaries count. If you were in that forum with me, if you've ever been in your own, what line did you need to say out loud to step out of the lie? Share it below. Your sentence might be the bridge someone else needs. I kept Peter's email open like a nightlight. His reply to the law firm sat there at the top of my inbox, calm and precise, a wall of words that didn't blink. Outside, Santa Cruz exhaled through the window screens. A bus sighed, then moved on. Somewhere, a neighbor's kettle clicked off. That evening I did the most radical thing I could think of. Nothing, no refreshing. No drafting another statement. I folded laundry slowly, like I was telling my body it could live at a human speed again. The letter came the next morning. Not from a firm this time, from my mother's account, the subject line plain as a door. As of today, I stood in the small square of light on my kitchen floor and read it once, then again, because endings deserve clarity. The phrasing was careful and cold. They were disappointed. They were embarrassed. They were taking a step back. They wanted me to know the impact of my accusations. They wished me well. They did not say we love you or we are sorry. They did not say, what did we do to you? They said, what did you do to us? I felt the old reflex spike. Explain, soften, apologize for using the wrong tone in the truth. Then the reflex faded like steam on glass. I put the letter in a folder named Keep and closed the tab. Not everything deserves a reply. Some things only deserve a boundary. I made oatmeal, stirred blueberries in until the purple stained the spoon. I ate standing up, then sat down just to prove I wasn't bracing for impact. When I finished, I washed the bowl, dried it, and set it on the rack. Small ceremonies matter when you're closing a chapter. They give your hands something to do while your heart catches up. I opened the jar on my bookshelf and looked at the folded bill inside. $1, still crisp, George Washington's face as unimpressed as ever. I had kept it in the jar not to remember hurt, but to measure distance. Day one of choosing myself, day one tax of dignity. I took the bill out, smoothed the crease, and wrote 2 words on the margin with a pencil. Not owed. Then I slid it back, a marker that now pointed forward instead of back. The workday started. Calls, edits, a brainstorm where the brief actually matched the ask. I sat up a little taller. My ideas didn't come from anger anymore. They came from oxygen. When the boutique agency confirmed my contract extension, I closed my eyes and let the yes come all the way in, not luck, not pity, fit. At lunch, Jessica showed up with soup in a thermos and a crooked smile that has saved me more times than I count. She leaned against my counter while I poured, the lid clicking like punctuation. "How's your nervous system?" she asked. "Retired from fireworks," I said. "Mostly," she grinned. "Progress?" I told her about the letter. She didn't try to reframe it as love. She didn't rush to fix it. She said the only thing I needed. "You did the right thing. You can trust yourself." After she left, I took a walk and let the ocean edit my thoughts. Kids on scooters sounded like bells. A man repaired a kite with his teeth in a strip of tape, then sent it up again to fail better, then fly. I watched until the kite learned the wind. People talk about closure like it's a single click. It's more like this. You pull and adjust and step backward into space until the line holds. When I got home, I wrote an email to myself. Yes, to myself. Subject: terms and conditions. I typed out the rules for my next season. Short, plain. A contract you could carry in your pocket. I don't explain my boundaries to people who benefit from crossing them. I don't trade my safety for someone else's comfort. I don't confuse silence with peace. I choose the boring path that keeps me free. I am allowed to want soft things after hard ones. I signed it. I hit send. The ding landed like a promise I could enforce. Late afternoon, that executive who'd reached out after the forum pinged me again. "Quick check-in. All good? Anything you need us to watch for?" I thanked her, asked for nothing, and meant it. The best part of a net is remembering it's there, not using it every hour I cooked dinner. Garlic and olive oil, the universal translation for "you're safe now." The radio played a song I used to like before the holidays made it feel like propaganda. It sounded better in this apartment. Maybe it was the lower ceiling. Maybe it was the lack of performance. I ate with the window open and let the cold rise. When the dishes were done, I sat at the table with my journal and wrote a letter I didn't plan to send. "Dear Brandon, we used to race sand crabs and build bad castles. We used to share popsicles and the flu. I hope you learn the difference between a gift and a liability. I hope someone chooses you in a way that doesn't cost someone else their name. I'm not your villain, I'm your mirror. You can hate the reflection and still fix your hair." I tore the letter out. I folded it once, then twice, then put it in the same folder as my mother's email. Not to revisit, but to remember what I refused to carry. As night came in, I did a strange thing. I drove to the grocery store, bought a single lemon, and brought it home. I sliced it and set the 2 bright halves on a plate by the window. You put citrus in a room and it declares the space awake. It says, "Clean start." It says, "The knife is for cooking, not defense." I scrolled through my camera roll to the photo of the wharf from the night I arrived, the water black and honest. I added it as my laptop background, not the Porsche, not the driveway, the bay. The place where I said I'm safe, I'm here. I didn't do anything wrong. I needed that sentence to be furniture. Here's the part I owe you, because you've stayed this long and you have your own story folded like a note in your pocket. The people who benefit from your confusion will always call your clarity cruel. They'll accuse you of lighting fires while you're simply flipping on the light. They'll say family like it's a contract you signed at birth. It isn't. It's an invitation you get to accept as yourself. And if saying yes requires you to disappear, that's not a family. That's a stage you fall through. So I'll say it the way I wish someone had said it to me. Choosing yourself is not betrayal. It's oxygen. It's the only way you can be of any use to anyone, including you. The first breaths will burn. Then your lungs will remember. I promise I'm not trying to make this tidy. It's not. There are inbox dings I still dread. There will be holidays that pinch like small shoes. There will be people who prefer the rumor to the paperwork because certainty is a habit and truth is a chore. But I don't live in their house anymore, literally or emotionally. I live in a studio above a florist where the radiator sings, and a Thursday potluck exists for no reason other than goodness. I live in a town where the ocean tells the same story every day and never gets bored. You can start again. I keep the paper trail organized not because I relish the fight, but because peace likes order. I keep the jar with the dollar not because I hoard grievances, but because symbols help us remember. I keep my counsel close because courage without a plan is just pain with a cape. I keep friends who ask about my nervous system and don't flinch when I tell them the truth. Most nights now, I read, I write. I learn the names of birds. I miss my parents in the way you miss a street you can't safely walk anymore. Missing doesn't require returning. It requires respect. For your limits, for the parts of them that are not yours to fix, for the fact that love without safety is a story told in past tense. The last thing I did before bed was open the window a little wider and let the cool push in. The lemon halves glowed like tiny suns. Somewhere a train offered a lonely horn to a city that didn't need it, but took it anyway. I slipped under the blanket and let the day unspool behind my eyes. The letter, the jar, the list, the soup, the sea, none of it neat. All of it mine. If you're listening and you've been the discount on which someone else built their convenience, if you've been handed a $1 lesson while your brother got the car, hear me. You're allowed to set the price of your peace. You're allowed to charge full value. You're allowed to walk out with your name intact and your voice steady. Tell me one boundary you set that changed your life, even if it was small. Write it in the comments like a lighthouse, short, bright, true. Someone out there is steering by your light tonight, because that's the message I want to leave you with, plain and without a twist. I choose myself, not against anyone. For me, for the work I do better when I can breathe. For the life where a dollar is just paper and a car is just metal and love, when I find it, will not arrive stamped with my signature on someone else's bill. I choose myself and I'm still here, so are you.